twilight lies gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fights. Oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets rattling, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say just that star-spangled banner, yeah, wave o'er the land under the frame, and the home of the brave.
Don't be afraid, this is a low fat, and you are listening to HonestAnswerRadio.com. Now, where is the egg roll you guys promised me?
The views and opinions expressed on the Honest Answer Radio show are the opinions of Honest Answer Media and no one else. If you're hearing a syndicated broadcast of this show, don't hold it against the broadcaster. Rather, congratulate them on their openness, tolerance, and respect for the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America. Thank you very much.
I must have dreamed 1,000 dreams, been haunted by a million screams, but I can hear them marching feet. They're moving into the street. Did you read the news today? They say the danger's gone our way, but I can see the fires still light. Burning into the night. There's too many men, too many people, making too many problems, and not much left to go round. Can't you see this is a land of confusion? This is the world we live in, and these are the hands we give them. Use them and let's start trying to make it a place worth living in. Who's Superman? Where are you now?
Welcome one more time to Honest Answer Radio here on HonestAnswerRadio.com, where we're kicking the mainstream media in the teeth every chance we get. If this is your first time listening to us, I'm going to be the Marty half of your dynamic hosting duo this fine Tuesday evening.
And on the Tuesday evening edition of Honest Answer Radio, I will be the Casey half of this shindig.
And we are going to start kicking the mainstream media in the teeth tonight by talking about things that they're not talking about. And
No.
by not talking about things that they are talking about.
Well, okay.
Well,
one
or
thing
at
we're
least
not,
a thing.
One thing that we're not talking about, if this is where you came to hear any news about the missing Malaysian jet airliner, sorry, this ain't the place to go.
Yeah, this is not going to be the show you want to listen to. But if this is where you came to hear some of the latest on Obamacare, or the president thwarting the Constitution, or the escalating tensions in the Ukraine and their possible implications on the United States, well, you might be in the right place.
And if you tuned in to see if we could kick MSNBC in the teeth one more time, hey, this is the show for you.
And let's face it, they make it so easy.
Oh, Lord.
They practically kick themselves in the teeth every time they go on the air.
We're going to have, you told me towards the end of the show, we do have a clip to play from Chrissy Hayes.
Oh, yes. Well,
And
sort of towards the end of the show,
today on Twitchy, which is the website that Michelle Malkin founded, they had where somebody had uncovered Chris Hayes' first tweet, which was something to the effect of, I'm sitting here in my office looking out the window, crying into my sweater.
What?
Yeah, that was his first tweet. The first thing he had to say to the world when he jumped on Twitter.
He's crying in his sweater.
I don't know what for. That was not part of the article, but
I've heard of tears in my beer, tears on my pillow.
But tears on the sleeve of my sweater. I'm crying into my sweater. I just don't know. I'm so
Butch
sad.
it up a little bit there, Chrissy. Come on, man. Really? Okay.
But that's not the clip we got to play.
That's
We'll get to that later.
Yeah. We'll,
I think
we'll
we're
jump
going to
into
have
that.
to go back to, if we were running this the way our church runs the business meetings, since we didn't do a show last Thursday.
We have old business.
Yes, I'd say, anybody have any old business to put before the committee?
Well, I do.
Marty.
I do. I do have some old business, but it's still relevant business. Last week, Trey Gowdy and a few others were trying to bring a bill out called the Enforce the Law Act. This was to sort of tie the president down to say you can't just enforce whatever parts of the laws that you like and not enforce the parts that maybe, may inconvenience some of your friends or donors. Because that's what the man's been doing with Obamacare.
It also gave Congress the legal standing to take it up with the Supreme Court.
Right.
And say, hey, Supreme Court, make the president do what he's supposed to do.
Well, Gowdy spoke on the House floor, and this is, for Honest Answer Radio anyway, this is kind of a lengthy clip. But honestly, there was nowhere I could cut. There was not one piece of this speech he gave that I could cut loose.
Because he only had a limited amount of time for him to introduce, to say his piece. He used every bit of it to good effect.
This is 4 minutes and 18 seconds, but it's, wow. Check him out.
These last few years, we've seen an unacceptable abuse of power, having a president whose priority is expanding his own power. Any guess on who said that, Mr. Speaker? It was Senator Barack Obama. Here's another one. No law can give Congress a backbone if it refuses to stand up as a co-equal branch. The Constitution made it. Senator Barack Obama. What do we do with a president who can basically change what Congress passed by attaching a letter saying, I don't agree with this part or that part? Senator Barack Obama. I taught the Constitution for 10 years. I believe in the Constitution. Senator Barack Obama. And my favorite, Mr. Speaker, one of the most important jobs of the Supreme Court is to guard against the encroachment of the executive branch on the power of the other branches. And I think the Chief Justice has been a little too willing and eager to give the president more power than I think the Congress or the Constitution originally intended. So my question, Mr. Speaker, is how in the world can you get before the Supreme Court if you don't have standing? What did the president mean by that when he looked to the Supreme Court to rein in executive overreach? If you don't have standing, how can you possibly get before the Supreme Court? So my question, Mr. Speaker, is what's changed? How does going from being a senator to a president rewrite the Constitution? What's different from when he was a senator? Mr. Speaker, I don't think there's an amendment to the Constitution that I missed. I try to keep up with those with regularity. But what I do know is this: process matters. And if you doubt it, Mr. Speaker, ask a prosecutor or a police officer, both of whom, as my friends on the other side of the aisle know, both of them are members of the executive branch. What happens when a police officer fails to check the right box on a search warrant application? The evidence is thrown out, Mr. Speaker, even though he was well-intended, even though he had good motivations, even though he got the evidence, because process matters. What happens, Mr. Speaker, when the police go and get a confession from a defendant? He did it. This is not a whodunit. He admitted he did it. You got the right person for the right crime. But what happens if he doesn't follow the process? The defendant walks free. And the criminal defense attorneys, who are now congressmen on the other side of the aisle, know that that's exactly what they argued when they were before the judge. Not that the end justifies the means. Don't look at the motivations. Look at the process. Mr. Speaker, we are not a country where the end justifies the means, no matter how good your motivations may be. We all swore an allegiance to the same document that the President swears allegiance to faithfully execute the law. So I will be listening intently during this debate for one of my colleagues to explain to me what that phrase means. What does it mean? Not to execute the law, but when the framers thought enough of that phrase to add the modifier faithfully. What does that mean? And if a president does not faithfully execute the law, Mr. Speaker, what are our remedies? Do we just sit and wait on another election? Do we use the power of the purse, the power of impeachment? Those are punishments. Those are not remedies. The remedy is to do exactly what Barack Obama said to do, to go to court, to go to the Supreme Court, and have the Supreme Court say once and for all, we don't pass suggestions in this body, Mr. Speaker. We don't pass ideas. We pass laws, and we expect them to be faithfully executed. But with that, I would yield back to the gentleman from Virginia.
Well said. Well said, Congressman Gowdy. And, you know, I think that this proposed law is a fantastic idea. I don't have faith that it's actually going to make it through the process. The president already said he'd veto it if it hit his desk, but I don't see it making it through the Senate.
I don't either, because there are some gutless punks in the Senate. Some of them are Republicans.
But, you know, all they would have to do is hearken back to where Gowdy started out. You know, he was
With
quoting then Senator Obama when there was a Republican president, and there was overreach on the part of a Republican president. Now, the Democrats very well may win the next presidential election. But what about the one after that? Or the one after that? You would think that those in the Senate would see this bill and go, well, you know what? Gowdy's right. Gowdy is right. The impeachment, pulling the purse strings, those are punishments. They're not a remedy to this problem. And if we don't want to suffer through what we're putting these Republicans through now under another president, it would be a really good idea to go ahead and let's get this bill passed.
So that Congress will have standing in the Supreme Court. Because the Supreme Court, lots of people have standing when they bring suits to the Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm.
The Supreme Court is under no obligation to hear every case that's brought to it.
Right.
If they think that it's frivolous, if they think that some senator or some member of the House is bringing suit in a frivolous manner or on something that is beneath the dignity of the Supreme Court to decide on, they don't even have to hear it. They can always say, this isn't worth, this is not worth wasting our time on. So it's still not going to make the process any more political.
Right.
But it would give Congress some standing to bring the suit and say, is this executive overreach or is it not?
And it's, this doesn't just affect these Republicans who are struggling in the House right now to get anything done because of a Senate that is stonewalling them, or a president who just enforces bits and pieces of whatever law he chooses and only makes certain people have to live up to the law while allowing another section of society to just skirt around it and walk free. This country is going to go beyond 2014. This isn't just an immediate Obamacare problem. President George W. Bush, he was just as guilty of presidential overreach as Barack Obama.
Yes.
Probably not as many times or about the same law quite as often.
No, but
guilt is guilt.
Exactly. And
if he did it once, that's enough.
we squawked about it then.
Right.
When he was signing executive orders. We squawked about it then. So this is not a Republican issue. It's not a Democrat issue. It's an issue about the separation of powers.
And it's an issue to protect the citizens of this country against dictatorship. It's as simple as that. Right now, that's essentially what we have. At least as far as Obamacare is concerned, the Affordable Care Act, as far as that particular law is concerned, we're living under a dictatorship. Because this president repeatedly has moved, this deadline back, moved this deadline back, said this group of people doesn't have to, they're not mandated to enroll, but this group of people, on the other hand, is. Which, let's just get down to the brass tacks. Regular Joe Blow citizen of the United States, you're screwed. You're going to have to live by Obamacare. Whereas if you're a union, or if you're a donor, or if your company is one of Obama's favorite green companies, well, maybe you won't have to worry about it just yet. Fair is fair.
It's called equal justice for all.
And look at the damage that this presidential overreach has caused. We have roughly 5 million people enrolled under Obamacare. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean we've got 5 million people that's actually paid yet, okay?
No, there are 5 million people who have Obamacare in their little shopping cart.
Right. This law, according to the president, came about so that we could ensure that, what was it? How many millions of people?
About 13 million.
13 million
people.
Uninsured Americans could get affordable insurance,
But you know what?
health care coverage.
It turns out that some of the people who've signed up, it's not been quite as affordable as it was. It hasn't been quite as affordable as it was touted.
Right.
Because I think you were pointing out before the show that there's a fella who ended up stuck with a medical bill over $400,000, and
almost
this is
$500,000.
He has Obamacare.
Mm-hmm.
Yet he's stuck with a $400,000 medical bill that obviously he can't pay.
There's millions of people who enrolled in Obamacare who had to enroll as a result of the insurance that they liked, that they were told they could keep,
Right.
but yet couldn't keep. They were forced to enroll, and now their deductible is in some cases 3 and 4 times higher than it previously was, or their premiums have doubled and tripled in some instances.
To where they're the size of a mortgage.
5 million people enrolled. This was to insure 13 million. Many of those that were uninsured Estimates put it at, 3/4 or higher of the people that this was designed for
Well, you
have
remember-
yet to even enroll to begin with.
Now, here's a little bit of irony for you, since we're on this Obamacare subject. You remember Obama giving all his speeches, if you like your plan, you can keep your plan and all that, talking about for the price of your cell phone bill,
Right.
or less than the cost of your cell phone bill, you can get covered under Obamacare. And then this last weekend on the Sunday talk shows, he was telling all the young people, look, y'all just need to give up your cell phone and give up
Right.
your cable
Right.
and get the health insurance. So wait a minute. This was supposed to be so affordable that, it's not even going to be as much as your cell phone bill.
No,
and now he's talking about, well, you should get rid of all of your luxuries, everything that you like or you enjoy, give it all up so that Obamacare will thrive and prosper.
Oh, yeah.
So that the government will be okay. That's what he's saying.
And it was also to rein in these insurance companies because they were making all these exorbitant profits, right? Mm-hmm. Headline today on the Drudge Report says the rule changes have let insurance companies keep more profits and pay less for health care.
Well, before this bill even got passed, you and I are on record for telling people that this was going to benefit insurance companies, that they were going to make a killing. We said that, but no, we were crazy.
Yeah.
And that brings us to another. We got to move on, I guess. But speaking of, some things that are just unfair, earlier today I put it up on our blog that Credit Suisse, or Credit Suisse,
Yeah.
Eric Holder and the Justice Department are basically just refusing to prosecute Credit Suisse, even though they have been caught red-handed coming into this country and telling the millionaires and the billionaires how to hide their money
Right.
from the IRS so that it wouldn't be taxed.
Imagine that.
But they're caught red-handed, and they're a big banking industry. Remember, during the 2008 election cycle,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know how Barack Obama was going to
No one is above the law.
No one's above the law. These bankers, we're gonna get them.
Yep. We're going to prosecute all of the people in the banking industry who are trying to get around paying taxes, and we're going to hold these, 1%ers accountable.
Well,
Punish them for taking their money out of the United States.
and let's make one thing clear, folks. These people that they were advising, I have no idea whether they were Republicans or Democrats. The Swiss don't give a rip what political
No.
party you belong to.
No.
They were, just so long as you've got enough money, they'll tell you how to get around the IRS.
Right.
And they're doing it without
And let's
without
be
being
clear,
prosecuted.
too. Hey, man, I'm all for people figuring out a way to get around funding the IRS.
But not when people like you and I who have worked
Right.
all of our lives and our taxes were taken out before we ever even saw our money.
Right.
Our taxes were withheld in the withholding tax, federal withholding tax. And we never even got to see our gross income in our pockets.
Never
it was
in my whole
already
life.
taken out, and we got a net.
Right.
Okay. Now, if the average Joe Blow had the advantage of a Swiss banker come in and say, well, if you stick your money over here, it's not going to get taxed.
Right.
Or like they probably told John Kerry, and, look, get your yacht out of Massachusetts.
Right.
They're going to tax the crap out of you there.
Uh-huh.
Go keep it up in Rhode Island somewhere, or Maine. and and then you could get around paying the big luxury taxes.
It's about that word that Obama keeps throwing around so much, fairness. He's all about fairness and doing what's fair for the American people.
So is it fair somehow for a Swiss bank to skate through it?
Apparently it is, because Obama's Justice Department, Eric Holder's Justice Department, they don't feel the need to prosecute here, even though they're caught red-handed.
But what about income inequality, Marty?
Well, I really don't know how to answer that, man, because I think this is just another one of the
It's probably because you don't
instances.
have an income.
Well, that's true, but I think it has more to do with Obama's definition of fairness or justice. It's justice for just us.
Oh, see, I always thought he was saying justice, but what he's actually saying is just us.
Just us. Everything, all the rules apply to the American people, the regular Joe Blow Americans, but just us, well, we don't necessarily have to, we're not governed by the same laws as everyone else.
And while we're talking about high finance, you had mentioned that you wanted to at least skate over the topic of what exactly, because this takes us into, believe it or not, folks, this talk about finance takes us right up to rootin' tootin' Vladimir Putin.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And so a lot of audio that Marty's got around.
Yeah, the rest of the audio I have, as a matter of fact, involves rootin' tootin' Putin. I was looking at over at the Blaze this afternoon, and the big headline that they've got right out there in front just caught my attention. Could this signal the start of World War III?
Talking about the Russians invading Crimea, giving the Ukraine a lot of static, all of that.
Yeah. The theory behind this article is that World War III is not going to necessarily be fought with conventional weapons, but economic ones. And it all has to do with Vladimir Putin threatening to move away from using the American dollar.
Mm-hmm.
And
taking China with him.
And taking China. Well, he hasn't necessarily threatened to take China with him, but it's more or less a given that China will follow, as they have previously.
Well, see, back in 2008, I read another article on this kind of a similar topic today. I cannot remember where I saw it now. But the theory is that in 2008, China and Russia sold off all of the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac stock that they had, which helped bring the housing bubble.
Right. And it wreaked untold economic havoc on this country.
But
just that one little move on their part. And I would dare say, look, these people are very patient.
They see they're playing chess.
Right. They're not just looking at this week or this month. They play years down the line. And I don't think it's too far out of the realm of possibility that little move on their part, just that, dealing with Freddie and Fannie. Freddie and Fannie. That's hard to say. That little move there was like a test move. Let's just see what would happen if we dumped all of this stock.
Well, you know what the funny thing is?
There's something funny?
Well, not ha-ha funny. Weird funny. See, such a thing wouldn't be possible. I mean, them selling off Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac wouldn't even faze the United States if Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac weren't government-supported entities.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Okay. Centralized control of the economy, we've said this over and over again, but let's try to say it one more time to get it through to people. Centralized control of the economy is bad. It makes you weak. It makes you vulnerable. Why? Because all the eggs
Or in
sit
one
in
basket.
one basket. You drop that basket, all your eggs are broke.
You know, Margaret Thatcher warned about this very thing as she was leaving
yeah.
her position as prime minister there
Oh,
in
but
Great
she was
Britain.
an evil woman.
That's right. When she was warning Great Britain against forming the European Union and having that centralized economy there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the article on the Blaze is quoting a guy by the name of Kevin Freeman. And he's some global financial analyst, expert, much better with numbers than you and I. The quote is, he says, the real risk is if we go after them with economic weapons, that's sanctions, they come back after us, and this creates World War III. This is a very tough game of chicken that we're playing, and Putin is serious. It's like that a couple of weeks ago, somebody said that Vladimir Putin is playing chess while Obama's playing marbles. I'm going to go ahead and go to some of the audio. This is the president himself. This is what he had to say regarding Russia and Putin.
This was from yesterday, right? Yesterday's big White House announcement.
I believe so.
In recent months, as the citizens of Ukraine have made their voices heard, we have been guided by a fundamental principle. The future of Ukraine must be decided by the people of Ukraine. That means Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity must be respected, and international law must be upheld. And so Russia's decision to send troops into Crimea has rightly drawn global condemnation. From the start, the United States has mobilized the international community in support of Ukraine to isolate Russia for its actions and to reassure our allies and partners. We saw this international unity again over the weekend when Russia stood alone in the UN Security Council defending its actions in Crimea. And as I told President Putin yesterday, the referendum in Crimea was a clear violation of Ukrainian constitutions and international law, and it will not be recognized by the international community. Today I'm announcing a series of measures that will continue to increase the costs on Russia and on those responsible for what is happening in Ukraine. First, as authorized by the executive order I signed 2 weeks ago, we are imposing sanctions on specific individuals responsible for undermining the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and government of Ukraine. We're making it clear that there are consequences for their actions. I have signed a new executive order that expands the scope of our sanctions. As an initial step, I'm authorizing sanctions on Russian officials, entities operating in the arms sector in Russia, and individuals who provide material support to senior officials of the Russian government. And if Russia continues to interfere in Ukraine, we stand ready to impose further sanctions.
Okay. More or less what the president is saying there is that there's 11 or 12, maybe a dozen people there in Russia specifically that he has imposed a sanction against to say, okay, you guys can't travel to the United States anymore.
And we're not going to let you do business with us anymore, you bad people.
That's right. All those American companies that you're doing business with, well, you just forget that, mister. He's also saying that, in essence, he's trying to choke off some of their American avenues of finance. And, okay, all right, that's really some tough talk there, Barry. I don't exactly understand what you think this is, how you think this is going to have Vladimir Putin shaking in his boots. As a matter of fact, just this afternoon, Russian troops went after another Ukrainian military outpost
in Crimea.
and they killed a guy. They killed one of the soldiers. I don't think these sanctions that you're putting out by your executive orders are having necessarily the desired effect that you seem to think they're going to.
See, what I think Obama thinks that what scares him scares everybody else. And he's scared, so he thinks that Vladimir Putin is scared. And I understand that the vice president
Oh, God.
is
Yeah.
right there with Barry.
Dude, listen to this. Just listen.
Effective arguments to justify what is nothing more than a land grab, including what was said today. But the world has seen through Russia's action and has rejected the logic, the flawed logic behind those actions. Countries like Poland have shown that real progress comes from open societies who are, in fact, have open markets, not from invasion and aggression. 13 of the 15 countries on the Security Council of the United Nations voted to condemn the referendum in Crimea as illegitimate. Even China decided it could not support it and abstained, and Russia stood alone, naked in front of the world for the aggression that they had undertaken.
Russia stood alone, naked, in front of the world.
Look, Vladimir Putin, half the time, he don't even wear a shirt when they're taking pictures of him.
And he's
What does he care?
I like how he said, and even China could not support this aggression. They abstained. Yeah,
that's
some,
making a stand right
yeah,
there,
that's
Joe.
some tough talk from China against their friend and ally, Russia.
They abstained because probably the Chinese minister had to go to the bathroom, man.
Or, they very well looked at Russia and said, look, I don't care what you do. We're just not going to vote. And you know where our loyalties lie. But I do love it when he says 13 of the 15 members of the Security Council voted to strongly condemn this action. Oh, okay. So what y'all did there at the Security Council was you voted to say, dadgummit, that's just wrong.
Bad Russia.
Bad
Russia.
That's some tough talk there, Joe and Barry. You guys are really showing them now. I tell you, I bet you that Vladimir Putin is saying, boy, I sure am sorry we ever invaded Crimea and took them. Wow. These guys they're really serious about this, man. Mm-hmm. That's what makes this situation so embarrassing, is that President Obama and Vice President Biden, they're serious. They really believe that these words, these strongly worded condemnations, are somehow going to sway Vladimir Putin to the point that he says, wow, we really need to just back out of here.
See,
they're going to be angry with us if we don't.
Yet again, the words that they use, they're working off of a different dictionary than the entire rest of the civilized world.
And the uncivilized world.
I mean, it's like, if you like your plan, you can keep it. That meant something completely different.
Yeah.
To Barack Obama.
Like fairness and justice.
Yeah, because the justice part means just us.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they think that everybody else in the world is on the same page with the Obama administration, when nobody else in the world.
Well, exactly I'm trying to figure out exactly what page are they on, because all I'm seeing right now is a lot of empty talk that makes the United States look even weaker. Mm-hmm. But then again, look, I don't exactly know what the solution is here. I don't think we need to become involved militarily. Matter of fact, to me, that is the last thing that the United States needs to do.
No, but I tell you what would be a real thing that the United States could do instead of talking is to bump up the missile defense system in Poland and in Czechoslovakia.
Oh, you mean that thing, that missile defense system, that's that thing that the president said after he won the election he would have more flexibility on?
Yeah, that thing.
Oh, if I didn't know any better, I would be willing to say that it smells awfully like this was something that's been almost prearranged. It's almost as if the president knew back in 2012 that something of this nature was going to be in the works, and he might have been telling Vladimir Putin all along, okay, you go ahead, you do whatever you want to do there over in the Ukraine, Crimea, do whatever, and this is what we're going to do. I'm going to say a lot of tough words, but, don't pay any attention. I have to say these things so that, the little people will think that I'm actually doing something, but we all know that it's just going to be a lot of hollow words. Don't worry, I can be really flexible about this, and don't worry about that missile defense system over there in Poland. It's not even going to be there. And, man, we're not going to give the Ukraine anything. They're not going to get any type of weaponry for defense from us. I can be more flexible about this after the election. Just hold off. Don't go into I know you just went and got Georgia. I know. But if you'll just hold off a little bit till after this election,
then you can do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
Because, Congress voted to go ahead and slide Ukraine about $1 billion.
Yeah.
But when it got to
exactly, I'm wondering.
Well, but see, when it got to the Senate, Harry Reid killed it. You know why?
Well, I'm sure he had a good reason.
Well, see, it was clean. The House passed a clean bill that did nothing else but give Ukraine $1 billion. They didn't have anything else attached to it, like extending the debt limit yet again.
Right.
Or providing a little bit of pork for this or that congressional district or anything. It was a clean bill with nothing else attached to it. And, they wanted some little bit of stuff on some immigration, a little bit more debt ceiling, things like that on it. And since all that wasn't on there and it was just a clean bill, well,
Sorry, Ukraine.
Yeah, tough, y'all.
You got to take it in the shorts again. Charles Krauthammer over there at Fox, I think so far he's had the best analysis of this. This is what he had to say about the president's tough talk.
Charles. He's being ridiculed by Russians especially because the statement and the policy are ridiculous. He doesn't have a lot of cards, but he has some cards. And if he thinks that sanctioning 7 Russians out of a population of about 150 million is a sanction, he's living in a different world. The one thing that we could do is to respond to the Ukrainian request. When the president was here last week, they asked the Pentagon for weapons. And we said no, because somehow to arm the victim of aggression is a provocation. So we said no, we're going to offer them MREs, we're going to offer them rations. Well, that's going to hold off Russian tanks, I'm sure. And this response of, we are now going to calibrate as if Putin are they going to sanction 11 Russians now, so I'll have to stop where I am, is really preposterous. Again, if you're going to do something, do it. Otherwise, say nothing. But this really is humiliating response by a president who can't even get the Europeans to join him in effective sanctions, which we could do.
the last Democratic president at a forum in Dubai weighed in on dealing with Vladimir Putin.
He is highly intelligent, deeply patriotic in terms of Russia, but he sees it more in terms of the greatness of the state and the country than what happens to ordinary Russians. The one thing I will say about him is he was always pretty transparent. He never pretended to be what he wasn't. And I found in dealing with him, and by the way, with most other leaders with whom I had differences, that it was best to be brutal with them in private and be honest, because they respected you if you were.
Well, obviously respect is missing. Clinton is right that the Russians see greatness as national standing and not the lives of individuals, but that has been so in Russia since Peter the Great. It's not a new revelation, and if you aren't aware of it, you have no idea how to deal with Russia.
See, I think Krauthammer hit the nail on the head when he said this has all been a humiliating response. But I think even Krauthammer is not seeing this in the bigger picture. I truly believe that this is precisely what the president was talking about when he said, I can be more flexible. There'll be more, if you'll just hold off till after the election, I can have more flexibility. Because he's being awfully flexible about what is happening in the Ukraine at this particular moment. And the fact that he has been unwilling, we're not going to give you arms, but you can have all the MREs you can eat.
So basically, he's going to make sure that all the Ukrainians are constipated.
And Poland, Estonia,
Latvia, Lithuania,
You
Czechoslovakia.
guys, sorry, that missile defense system is just not going to make it. I owed Vladimir some flexibility. I mean, really and truly, if I didn't know any better, I would say this is a purposeful attempt at further weakening the position of the United States on the globe.
If it's not, then it's criminal negligence. Because all you have to do, man, all you have to do is crack open a history book and look at the Franco-Prussian War.
Even Bill Clinton.
World War I.
Even Bill Clinton can see this. Well, and it's like Krauthammer said again, Russia has been this way
since Peter the Great.
Right. Well, we promised some MSNBC audio.
To lighten the mood a little bit.
Well, I don't know about lightening the mood, but here's a clip from MSNBC's Chris Hayes, and he is talking about this situation with Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy, also a Democrat. Well, just listen.
Joining me now is Democratic Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut, a member of the Committee on Foreign Relations who just got back from Ukraine. And Senator Murphy, you along with Senator McCain, I think, have been probably the two most outspoken members of the United States government in condemning Russian incursions, in supporting the... I want to play for you a little more of what Senator McCain had to say about the president's handling today. Take a listen.
The president said we will, quote, consider other options. The president should have said we're going to provide military assistance to Ukraine, and that will be in defensive weaponry. But to not do that after this country has lost a large part of its territory due to Russian aggression, I think, frankly, it's encouraging, and it makes me less optimistic about Putin exercising restraint in eastern Ukraine.
You agree with your colleague we should be offering military assistance to Ukraine?
Yeah, John and I have agreed on most of our policy towards Ukraine. We traveled there twice together in the last 3 months, but it's probably no secret that I don't agree with him on this score. First of all, John has been a critic of the Obama administration on this issue since day one, and frankly, the fact that we are here today with a very weak Russia, having had the entirety of the Ukraine turn away from Russia and towards the EU, and having to have engaged in a panicky reaction of invasion, is a result in part of the United States strength on this issue, standing with the protesters throughout that difficult period of time at the end of last year and the beginning of this year. And the difficulty now is that ultimately the United States can't change the calculus in Russia on our own. We have to work in conjunction with the Europeans. This is a first step which sends a very clear signal to Putin that we are going to stand together with our European partners, and that if he doesn't reverse course in the coming days, I imagine there's going to be a new round of crippling economic sanctions. And so I think this is a process by which we're trying to give Putin a chance to de-escalate, and then the next step will clearly be a new set of sanctions.
Well, this chance to de-escalate, I mean, what strikes me here is that it does seem as if we're at the beginning of a kind of classic logic of escalation sort of situation, in which the U.S., as a means of trying to deter, further territorial incursions, threatens X, and then the territorial incursion happens, and so you have to come through with the threat, and then there's a response from Russia, which does not want to be seen as weak or backing down or cowed by the Americans. And I just do worry about how we change the course of this unfolding in a way that does not lead towards a kind of tit-for-tat cycle of escalation.
Well, I'm really sorry to disappoint you, Chris, but that's the way these things happen. It's tit for tat. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what Senator Murphy, how he came to the conclusion that what we're seeing here is a weakened Russia, or that this was some kind of panicky move on Putin's part.
Do you think that the former head of the KGB was unaware of what the political climate was like in Ukraine? Do you think that Vladimir Putin had just completely forgotten that the overwhelming majority of people in Crimea are ethnic Russians that were moved there by the Soviet Union?
And exactly how, really, how does this make Russia appear weak in any way when they invade a sovereign nation and, have this big land grab and threaten a further incursion, which we've seen today?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly where is the weakness, and how does this really, where is the United States gaining the upper hand here by making pointless, empty threats that they wouldn't even go, come through on regardless? And where exactly are these crippling economic sanctions when you have President Putin more or less saying, you know what, if you just really want to get down to it, we don't need the American dollar. We can do just fine without it. Look, we have a nice partner here in China who, by the way, doesn't need your dollars either. So where is the weakness on the part of the Russians? And where is the strength of the United States? I really think that these people are living on a different world than we are. They just refuse to acknowledge the truth as it is.
They're living in a different world, man. You and I have been saying all along that their view of the world was wrong. Just flat out wrong. And it's not just me and you. Man, we're not that brilliant. We're not so brilliant that we're the only ones who see this.
But see, I don't think that they really believe this themselves. I don't think that these people really believe that this is their view that they're saying, the way that they see things. I don't think that they really believe what they're saying.
It depends on which subject you're talking about. When it comes to economics, yeah, they believe it. They're buying it hook, line, and sinker. They believe in Keynesian economics. They believe that out-of-control spending doesn't matter. They believe that weakening the defensive capability, the material defensive capability of the United States is good for the rest of the world. Because just like they believe Obamacare is good for you, you will take your medicine because it's good for you.
Right.
They do believe it. So when, but the thing is, they don't understand. This is where the disconnect is. The rest of the world doesn't. The rest of the world, look, Vladimir Putin knows that if he doesn't have some kind of weapon other than missiles and tanks to use against Europe, that he can't win
Right.
in those kind of conflicts. But guess what? Europe has handed him the biggest weapon that he needs. He's got it already. It's called energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They've been buying so much energy from Russia.
But now they're dependent.
This is why you're not seeing the EU. This is why the EU sends strongly worded documents instead of getting over here and going, "Hey, man, we're if you're not going to shore up the missile defenses in Poland, we will."
Right.
Because
they need Russian oil.
And they need Russian natural gas.
That's right. Well, dude, we're at the end of our rainbow. I hate to leave us on such a sour note, but dadgummit, the truth is sometimes kind of bitter.
And just to really brighten things up for everybody, before we go, since we're kicking everybody in the teeth here,
right?
Yeah, in about seven more days, we got another cold front. One of those global warming cold fronts. Global warming is pushing the polar vortex down to the east again, and so yeah, in about another week, we've got another good cold front coming through here at the end of March.
Hot dog! All right.
So
all of those
global warming has caused one of the coldest springs in recorded history.
Are you suggesting that the blooms on our fruit trees are going to be fruitless?
No, because we still have to have a frost, and down here, it's going to get cold again, but we may not see a frost. Now, the rest of the country, up north of say Huntsville, Alabama, though, I'm sorry, y'all, it's not looking good. And our friends in Michigan, y'all, I'm not making fun of you, or our friends in Minnesota.
Wow.
Dude, we're not making fun of y'all.
We just going to pray for you.
Yeah, because, dude, it's coming. More's on the way.
Brace yourself, Bridget. All right, guys. Don't forget, look down below the player. If you're listening to us by honestanswerradio.com, just look down below the little player, and you'll see a little button that says Donate. If you like Honest Answer Radio and you're happy with the way we're coming to you, don't forget you can always give to your heart's content. The price of doing business is going up. We would appreciate any help you guys could offer. Another way you can help us out, go over there to the sponsors page over at Honest Answer Radio, and you will see any number of useful sponsors to this show, things that everybody needs and everybody can use. We've got LifeLock.
LifeLock, we have myfoodstorage.com, we have v2sigs.com, we have myfreedomsmokes.com, we have baconfreak.com, Cabela's, Jelly Belly, and by clicking on the links to those, you will get a deal, every one of them.
At least 10% off what you would normally be paying by going there just directly. You can always treat yourself to a better deal by going there through honestanswerradio.com. Also, don't forget you can look over at our channels page, because it's not just Honest Answer Radio that you're getting when you're over here on honestanswerradio.com. We have Sports World Radio with Sean and Jeff, fastest hour in sports on the internet.
We also have, to fill your spiritual need, we have Challenge from the Heart with Pastor Rick Hope from First Baptist Church of Lillian, Texas. If we've depressed you with tonight's show, you need a little hope, go to Challenge from the Heart, and Pastor Rick Hope will give you some hope of the best kind.
Absolutely. Your spirits will be lifted. Also, another good friend of the show, and another way of listening to Honest Answer Radio, goingbeyondradio.com. They don't just carry Honest Answer Radio. They can fill just about any of your internet radio needs.
It's a cornucopia.
A veritable cornucopia. And they are on a gajillion different platforms. Live 365, Shoutcast, Blueberry, Tuned In, iTunes, the Roku, you name it. Going Beyond Radio is on it. That being said, I'll take us out of here with words that are near and dear to my heart that will give us all just a little bit more hope in the world. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sin and will heal their land. You guys, we will see you again on Thursday.
Good night, y'all.
Be good to each other.
Love.